Welcome to the Blue Heart Podcast. I'm your host and conversational guide, Lieutenant Joe Pangaro. This podcast is for you, the men and women of law enforcement, because ours is a noble profession, worthy of your heart, your passion, and your life. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe here. I want to talk for a couple minutes today, really quick, about arriving at emergency calls, responding to and arriving at emergency calls. It's important for us to keep in mind several things. Number one, if you're a newer officer, it's hard enough to learn your town, your sector, your precinct, or wherever it is that you're assigned in a very short period of time. So one of the things I suggest you do is either use Google, the Google app, to get you where you got to go quick if you don't know, or have a map broken down with the sectors that has the key on the side so you can find it. Now, in an emergency, if you got sent to a hot call and you don't know where to go, the best thing you can do is get on the radio and ask for directions, as embarrassing as that might be. If you have to be somewhere fast and you don't know how to get there, you don't remember, we don't expect you to know that in the first couple of weeks that you're on your own. If it's not an emergency, if you can take a couple of minutes to get there, then look it up on your own. There's an old saying that says, you will never forget a location once you go there, especially for a hot call. So try and pay attention to that. You know, back in the day, we didn't have Google. We had these little maps. You had to open up your clipboard and try and figure out, Sector B7 and go look there and see if you could find your way there. In emergency, ask for help. In a non-emergency, take your minute or two and figure out how to get where you're going. Now, when it comes to responding to locations, there's a couple of important things. We've talked in the past about responding to a domestic violence incident or something like that. A lot of police officers get killed responding to these kind of calls because we're all ready to go. We're pumped up. We want to get to the call fast. You go racing, lights and sirens right up to the house. You jump out. You run up to the front door, okay? This is where we want to give some consideration to what we're doing. Many, many police officers, as they walk up to the front door of a domestic violence incident, are shot dead as they're approaching the front door. The person inside, we don't always have information about them. We don't always know that this is a very serious person. We don't know that they're intoxicated, that they've made threats. Maybe they just killed their partner or beat them up and they know they're going to jail, and they're concerned about that. And officers pull up out front, walk up, and they don't look around, take a shot. Not good. So one of the things you might want to consider, the lights and sirens are to get us where we have to go through traffic quickly and to warn pedestrians and other vehicles that we're coming at a high rate of speed so they get out of our way. You know, that's kind of an unwritten societal rule. People want us to get where we got to go fast. We need to get there. We put the lights and sirens on. They move out of the way. Also, using lights and sirens provides us with some liability reduction if we were operating the vehicle properly, if we were going at a reasonable speed to get where we were going, and we had to get to an emergency. People expect us to get to emergencies quickly. Right? Maybe as you get off the highway and you start to drive, maybe turn off those lights and sirens and pull up. When you pull up, don't pull up right in front of the house. Pull up the house next door. Kill your lights. Get out and take a second to look around. Look at the house that you're going. Are there any windows open? Are the windows open on the second floor? What do you hear and see as you're making your approach? So you don't just go running up out front. They know you're coming, and then they have the advantage over you. So pay attention how we're responding. Another important response point, and I'll tell you an interesting story. In the town where I worked, we had a very busy highway with hundreds of businesses up and down the highway. It was a divided highway, 2 lanes each direction, north and south. And it was very, very busy. During the daytime, there were hundreds of cars on there at any given moment. There were at nighttime, all the way until, the midnight shift got rolling, until it quieted down. We also had lots of gas stations on that road. Well, at one end of town, in the south end of town, we had, we're going to say Bob's Sunoco. 3 miles away to the north, on the same side of the highway, we had Frank's Sunoco. All right, so we had 2 of them there. I was a new officer. I was just learning all of my streets and knowing my zones and where I was going, and that was really good. And we got a call one night. I was probably about in the middle of the town. Right? I was about in the middle of the town, traveling east and west. We got a call for an armed robbery at Frank's Sunoco. Frank Sunoco is the one in the north half of town. Well, I wasn't familiar with Frank Sunoco. They didn't give the street address. They simply said, Frank Sunoco, armed robbery. And as I got to the intersection, I had to make a choice, go left and north or right and south. And for whatever reason, I said to myself, you know what? I think it's the one down south. I made the right-hand turn and I started heading south to what I thought was the Sunoco that had been robbed. On my way there, I see 4 patrol cars streaming north like bats out of hell, and I realized I made the wrong choice. I went the wrong way. The reason I did that is I didn't understand the name. I wasn't familiar. The gas station was not named Frank Sunoco or Bob Sunoco. Those were colloquial names given to those places because that was the name of the owners. And the old-time cops knew them. And they, that's Frank's place. Oh, that's Bob's place. So if I had gotten the street address, I would have known specifically which one to go to because I knew where the blocks were, the 100 block, 200 block, 300 block. And I would have known it was the one to the north. So get to know the businesses in your town. Get to know quickly how you can make moves to get around. And if there are things like that that are named different than their actual name, make sure you know them. That can certainly add time to your response. Another response. We might get a call to go to an armed robbery. Okay? When you get called to go to an armed robbery, you got to keep your eyes and your ears open because you would think, hey, the McDonald's just got robbed. So what's your natural inclination on that call? Is to race to the McDonald's. Well, if the call comes in that it's in progress and you are close by, it would be a good assumption that the criminal is probably still on location, and therefore you would respond to the location. What you want to consider is that if you get the call and you're not close by and you're responding, you have to assume that one of two things happened. Either somebody saw the place getting robbed, called on a cell phone, or somebody in the building hit an alarm or called and made the call to the police that they were being robbed. In any of those cases, it's a pretty good possibility that the robber is probably already gone. You know, they're out of the building. They're no longer at the building that you're racing to. And they could be anywhere, on side streets, surface roads, anywhere. Getting good information on a description of the robber or their vehicle or how they're getting away, their clothing, would be very helpful to you. So one of the things a senior guy told me one time is, hey, if you get the call and you're not close by and you're responding there, pick a good side street where you know there's travel, where people normally travel, and just pull over and take a look. All right? Unless, of course, you're the unit that's assigned directly to the call and you have to go, obviously, to the victims. And what this guy was trying to tell me was that, hey, a lot of times you'll find out it's a 2005 blue Hyundai with a white male driver with a red hat, and you're pulled off on that side road. That guy is no longer at that McDonald's. He's fleeing the scene, and you're sitting there, and there he goes right by you, and then you can give chase and hopefully make a safe apprehension. I had an incident one time where I was dispatched to a McDonald's. Imagine that, where I came up with this story. And I was a new guy. And I immediately responded to the McDonald's. Now, we had a one-way road where the McDonald's was situated on. So it was on this double highway that I talked about earlier. So if I was going north, I'd have to go all the way north, quite a distance, to take a loop to come back south to get to the McDonald's. Or I could sneak through an apartment complex that was behind the McDonald's and end up right there. So knowing that, I could make that sneaky little trip. That's exactly what I did. So we got the call of an armed robber, that he fled out of the building, and we had a basic description of a male with a hoodie. As I turned into the apartment complex, a car going the other way, believe it or not, a red Ford Pinto. Yeah, that's going back in history. A red Ford Pinto is going the other way, and he stops at a stop sign just as I'm making the turn to head towards the McDonald's. And we looked at each other as I went by. Now, they said the guy fled on foot. So I'm expecting a guy on foot. I get to the McDonald's, and the manager runs out, points to the woods, and says, hey, the guy had the hoodie on. He ran through here, and he got in this little red car, and he went that way. Well, that was me coming face to face with the armed robber. When we eventually caught him several days later, he had a loaded .45 caliber handgun, and what he told the detectives at the time was that if I had tried to stop him, he would have shot it out with me right there. Okay? So you never know when you're going to come across these people. So you got to be eyes and ears wide open, and don't always think you're going to find them at the location where the crime took place. If you're close by, maybe you will. But if you're not close by, as you're getting there, you got to imagine, if you're robbing a store, how long are you going to hang around? You're going to take off and get out of there. So you want to maybe catch them on the traveled roads in the area. All right. So this is talking about being careful, watching what we do when we approach. Safety is the key. And the last thing I want to talk about responding to calls is this. There's a time and place to go crazy getting where you have to go. Someone shot, there's a bad accident, an officer down, something like that. You need to get there fast. You need to use all of your skills and abilities and the equipment of your vehicle. Know the capability of your own driving skill and know the capability of your vehicle. You know, we're not assigned to the same vehicle every day. Sometimes we're assigned to an SUV, sometimes a patrol car, sometimes an old patrol car. And we go out there driving it like we're driving our favorite car that we're normally assigned to, and it can operate differently under different conditions. Make sure you understand how to operate those vehicles. Understand your own skill set. I was a very good high-speed driver. Right? I was very cautious, but I could go at high speeds. I could see down the road, so to speak. I could see potential dangers, potholes, water, ice, and I could drive appropriately to get where I had to go fast. You have to determine your own driving skills. Are you a very good high-speed driver, or are you not? If you're not, and you're trying to get somewhere excessively quick, you can crash the car. And what do they tell you? What have they told you already? Your sergeant or somebody, right? You can't help at a call if you don't get there safely. So know your own limitations in driving. Know the limitations of your vehicles and pay attention to where it is you're going so that you get to the call so you can offer the service that we're supposed to do to help, protect and serve people, make sure we don't crash. So this is all important. One of the things that started happening when we got the MVRs in the vehicles was that supervisors will go back and randomly look at your MVR to see how you responded to a call, what you did when you got there, what goes on. And one night we were going through MVRs, and we observed a police officer going to a fire alarm at 3 a.m. through a residential neighborhood. Now, the officer was going lights and sirens because it's a residential neighborhood. You figure somebody's house is burning down, and there's people in the house. The house is on fire maybe because the alarm came in. There's a fire alarm. So the officer was going there, lights and sirens, and he was going there quickly. Well, you have to figure, in a residential neighborhood, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. So, of course, the officer is going to exceed that speed limit to get to the house quickly and safely. Unfortunately, when we reviewed the video, the officer was going fast. He was going excessively fast. He was going in excess of 75 to 80 miles an hour racing through a neighborhood. Now, there's a couple of mitigating circumstances. Number one, it was the middle of the night, and the officer explained that, hey, I could see oncoming headlights from side streets, so I knew there was nobody coming, and I was trying to get to the fire as quickly as I possibly could to save people. Okay, that's a good thing. The parts of the response was that it was an alarm, and there was no confirmation of a place on fire, and in reality, 75 to 80 miles an hour is not safe in a residential neighborhood no matter what you do. There's parked cars, there's traffic coming the other way potentially. So unfortunately, that officer found himself in a little bit of a problem. I saw it as a chance to teach, right? There's two ways we do things. We make mistakes of the heart or we make mistakes of the head. Our business is very, very liquid. We start out with a call and some basic information, and we have to make lots and lots of decisions based on what's going on around us. That's called situational awareness. Well, I always saw if an officer did something wrong and it came out bad, I looked at it and said, did the officer do something of the heart or of the head? So if he did something wrong or she did something wrong of the head, which means you cut corners, you violated policy on purpose, you did things wrong that you knew you shouldn't have done, that's a serious problem for you, and it should be. We do not do those kind of things purposely wrong. The other way you look at it is it of the heart? Our business is crazy. Things go sideways in an instant. So when I would look at it, I would want to know, did the officer make these decisions and take these actions because he or she was trying to do the right thing and it just went sideways? This is a question you have to ask yourself. When you're doing these things, when you're responding, what is it you're doing? Are you doing the right thing for the right reason? Right? Getting somewhere fast is very important. But crashing into another person, crashing into a parked car, hitting a tree, officers get killed every single year responding, doing the right thing to try and get somewhere fast, but they're not prepared for those speeds. So I want you to keep that in mind. Pay attention to your approaches. Think about them all the time. Get there safely and do your job. All right, we'll catch up again shortly. This is Lieutenant Joe. See you later. Lieutenant Joe and the Blue Heart Podcast Network would like to thank our sponsors. Blue 360 Media. You can find them at www.blue360media.com. And Medical Essential Diagnostics. You can find them at www.med-nj.com. We would also like to thank the Blue Heart Network production team, led by Senior Executive Director Todd Pangaro. Be careful out there. Do what's right.